The Spin-Off Podcast Network. Skinny are helping you show how smart you are with the 1Q quiz, an all-new, super challenging and super quick daily quiz built by the Spin-Off. Every Monday, Skinny are giving you the chance to prove you're smart with the Skinny Extra Credit question. Get it right, and you'll get the chance to score yourself some Skinny Extra mobile credit, so you can text, call, or even video call your group chat and gloat about how big your brain is. T's and C's apply.
The Fold is brought to you by O Media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa. Nau mai, hoki mai, kia The Fold, e mihi nei, ko Duncan Greive tōku ingoa. My guest today is John Tapu, who is man, I don't even know what he is. I assume GM. He is the dude behind Kava Bowl Media, which is a new-ish media company that is set up to take Pacific stories to the world. And this is I love this episode. I must confess that I didn't even know what John was about until a few weeks ago when I heard that this show, The Ditch, which it's a rugby league show with emphasising the sort of Pacific and Māori whakapapa of players in the NRL, and that it had been sold to Fox Sports, and I was like, oh, sorry, what? Because this doesn't happen. Like, to be clear, like, we make a bunch of sports shows in New Zealand, and they air here. They don't go anywhere. That's what's normal. And so for The Ditch, which started a matter of weeks ago, to be sold to Fox through the NRL out to Pacific community channels, out in the Pacific, it's pretty extraordinary what they've achieved there. And if you watch the product, you can see why it's happened. It's hosted by Chris Key and Savannah Tafo-Levy, and they're very young but wildly talented, and they just have this like beautiful informality about them that absolutely doesn't get in the way of a really funny but also heartfelt package. So I read that and I was like, this is not a small thing, and looked into it, and everything I see about Kava Bowl is just fascinating. They have predominantly worked in sports production in terms of on the screen side, and sold multiple shows to Sky Sport, which is actually where John worked for over 2 decades before leaving, remortgaging his house to start Kava Bowl. And what he did was he built a studio in his backyard and in his garage, and as a result, these huge stars in the Pacific and Māori world have walked down his driveway and given some of the best and most sort of relaxed or at ease interviews and reflective interviews of their careers, because they're in this location that you go to Sky, and as John discusses, it's quite an intimidating place, but what he gets out of them there is amazing. And I'm certain that we're just at the start of seeing what he can do there. And he has this incredible vision for building the Paramount of the South Pacific out of his garage in Māngere. So we talk about that and really about what he's trying to build there. I think it's a really interesting discussion. I'm sure a lot of those listening will get a lot out of it, and will see what he's doing and how it is, a lot of we think of them, in terms of us as quote unquote mainstream media as really hard problems to solve, and yet you hear John talk, finding the talent and setting them up to succeed it seems like it's the easiest for him, and the hardest part is actually engaging with channels and networks and getting those things funded. So we talk about that, and we also talk about Mr. Cowboy, who's an artist I hadn't heard about until a few hours ago, and now I'm obsessed with this Samoan country singer with a voice from God. Real fascinating story there too. Look, there's a lot in this one, so I'll let you get into it. But yeah, this is John Tapu from Kava Bowl Media on The Fold. Talofa, John, and welcome to The Fold.
Talofa, bro. Thanks for having me. also really nice to meet you. And
Yeah, same goes. I'm such an admirer of this enterprise you're building out, Kava Bowl Media. I wonder if you could just tell me what led you to founding it.
Yeah, Kava Bowl Media is it was us, a team of actually relatives. I don't know if you've heard of a guy named Professor Damon Salisa.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a cousin of mine.
He's now Vice Chancellor at UT.
Yeah, the first ever Māori Pacifica Vice Chancellor in New Zealand's history. So we kind of hang out, and he's kind of the brainiest guy in the family. And he said to me, man, you're quite a talented guy. Why don't you put your hand up and kind of plug some of these holes that are missing in terms of representation for our community? So I said, hey, I'm not scared of a challenge. So I mortgaged the house and converted my garage into a state-of-the-art studio, thanks to the support of my lovely wife.
That's such a beautiful thing, and good on your wife for backing you too. These things are not, that's often what's required to get something that's audacious off the ground. One thing which I've sort of noted through looking at what you do is that it feels very, very rounded and diversified. There's a lot of the time with media, people stick to this narrow thing, but you've got like books of poetry and music and, and like sports TV shows. Like it just feels like it's about involving people with what they're good at and figuring out a way to take that to various markets. Is that fair?
Yeah, look, someone asked me, JT, what do you do for a job? I said, man, I do whatever's possible to make sure that we are able to move the needle for our community. This morning, I got up in the morning and dropped off some jib board to my cousin who's doing a bit of building. I help him with a building company. I also have a little recruitment company on the side as well, and also run this media company that I'm really passionate about. And the reason why I'm doing all these things is we don't just Pacifica or Māori people don't just have this struggle or these hurdles just in media. For me, the front line is in employment, and that's why I thought, look, anything I do, I look at it holistically, whether it's music, whether it's creating sports shows, or whether it's doing going on road with the Shades to do an opera show up and down the country, or whether it's dropping off jibboard to my cousin because he needs to help build a house in South Auckland. All these things are very much relevant, and that's where our community need to be active in.
So tell me when you founded it and how's it gone for you? Like the process of building out something into, to willing it into being and to doing it literally from your home.
Yeah, look, I think you hit it on the nail there, willing it to being. You wake up one morning with this burning desire, this deep burning desire that eats away at you day and night. That says, John, you need to do this. And you're like, go away. Why are you talking to me, man? I just want a 9 to 5, right? My life's cool. I eat chicken whenever I want. I don't need this. I don't need this responsibility. But people are different, and I firmly believe with our team, we have this calling to really make a difference. And to answer your question, you wake up, you draw a line in the sand, and you say, look, I want to make my own shows, and the first thing you need to take is sovereignty. Sovereignty is when you're not walking into anybody's building, you're not having to ask companies if you could use their editing system, can I borrow an editor? Sovereignty starts if you own it. And if you own it, the rest will follow. And that's what I was desperately wanted to do. And as I said before, I borrowed money from the bank, converted my garage into a studio. And I invited people to come and say, look, if you work with me, we don't have to look over our shoulders and ask people whether we can use this or book a time slot. And that's been really one of the key things. It's not having ownership, and secondly, being in the community. We're not in Queen Street. We're not in, Great North Road. We're in Māngere, right? So when I work, I look outside the window and see my neighbours mowing their lawns. I can see my Tongan neighbour hanging her washing. And for thousands of years, my ancestors are programmed to work in community. We live in houses in the islands that don't have walls. So it's natural for my eyes, for my lens, to live in that environment. And that's really contributed. All these little elements have contributed, whether it's organically or accidentally, into creating really authentic content.
One thing which, I'm not sure if it was the intention with it or whether it was a very happy side effect, but I think I read an interview with you where you talked about how Sky, have been they're a previous employer of yours and have become, I think, a very good client in terms of some of the stuff that you make. They offered up their studios for you to make some of their shows, and you were like, for some of my Pacific people, when they come through, they put on this, what you described as their job interview voice. And whereas when they come to your garage or to your house, it's a whole different type of conversation. You feel that coming through in the type of content and the insights that you get from and the performances you get from your talent.
Yeah, Duncan, at Kava Bowl Media, one thing we have a real specialist in is trust. And I'm not saying that our Māori Pasifika people can walk into big buildings and elevators and feel inferior. No, chances are we probably built that building. But it's trying to make them feel at ease. And one of the stories I share with many people is, for years, I'd see the Warriors or All Black boys come into Sky TV and having to drive down this long driveway and scan in and walk down these long white corridors and then go into a studio that had a 4 or 5 meter high ceiling.
It's an intimidating place,
it's really
guys.
Intimidating.
The whole setup of it, you feel like you're somewhere, no matter what.
So they'd put on their job interview voice and they'd be walking like they're walking through immigration, And I'd say, bro, we were cracking jokes in the car park. Hey. That's the
performance you want, but you can't get in that location. You can't get in there.
But it's not. But even white people have that problem when they walk into this setting or this model. Because, that's how it's programmed, right? So if a middle-class white guy is nervous, well, what chance do we have, of us telling our stories? So it's never authentic. So you just get the run-of-the-mill standard questions, standard answers, right? And then people think that's just how we think. So I thought, look, I'll convert into my garage in a place where people feel very comfortable. And we had a show called Pacific Brothers and Sisters that rated... it went gangbusters on Sky. It was hosted by the great, amazing Oscar Kitely. And we had, Dame Valerie Adams talking about her menstrual cycle. We never went there, but she was comfortable enough to bring these up. We actually had to kick Frank Bunce out because he didn't want to leave. We were like, hey, bro, it's time to go. We had to kick Israel Adesanya out because he just didn't want to leave, right?
Incredible.
So why would you want to leave when you're in the community?
When you're at ease.
When you're at ease. And that's the problem, right? It's not that we feel inferior. It's just that we have to go and find people's truths and find innovative ways to make people feel comfortable, because at the end of the day, we're all people.
It's interesting as well, because I think that you were touching on it there, is there's an informality that comes across through the shows. They obviously have to fit a format. They're 22, 23 minutes in various segments and so on. But, I loved an episode of The Ditch that I was watching this morning when, they put up the oosh.kiwi URL and, just the name of it felt very, authentic to the show. But also they were like, we are advertising a thing that doesn't currently work. And instead of being, embarrassed about that or getting uptight, it was just another excuse to have a laugh. And there were so many moments where the kind of typical structure of a show of that nature was subverted by an informality, which came across as kind of warm and humorous. And I can imagine for talent who might have been on a bunch of shows like this before, but never one like this, in this place with this kind of value set palpable throughout it.
Yeah, and look, I'd like to, acknowledge Sky for really giving us trust, and because when you sat down and they said, look, this is the plan. I need some money. I'm going to make it in my garage. And can you just stay out of the way? And then they said, sweet. And for a big corporate to realize they have a share price, they have, hundreds and hundreds of employees. This is a big corporate. For them to say, hey, man, we can see the rain. And JT and Kava Bowl Media saying, the rain's coming and we need to listen.
Yeah.
And for them, and for these things, for you and I to talk openly and say, hey, we're changing the format, we're trying to, it's because someone is allowing us and also acknowledging that this is the way forward, right? And let's be honest, 5 or 6 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that, you know.
I think that's a great point you make, and I think it's something that the whole of the sort of more traditional media is sort of struggling through at the moment. Is, you know, a lot of the things which was considered sacrosanct, you know, in terms of how you approach things or who you might commission to make it. A, they're not delivering you the same results anymore, but B, they don't. You know, you like. It's been revealed what it probably was the whole time. There was a level of artifice there that we didn't really have to do it that way. So I do admire Sky a lot for, obviously you had the existing relationship which would have helped, but ultimately what you described, which is give us some money and trust us to deliver something for you, that is not how this industry typically operates, and that does create barriers towards new entrants coming in and trying something different, which is what they desperately need, and they know that.
Yeah, you know, with the, you know, this might come across as inflammatory to some people. They call themselves gatekeepers or hurdles, right? The way I got around it was I worked at Sky for 22 years and had these real strong relationships, and people that were in the decision to make power. I've been to their kids' birthdays, you know. I had lunch. I probably still owe them money for lunch, you know. So these are genuinely, I know their secrets. I've driven them home. You know, you can't put that on a spreadsheet, right? So when I went and spoke to them, I didn't talk about what was in front of them. I talked to them about me, right? About us and what I can bring and how they can trust me, right? Mm. And it's kind of sad that it had to take all my years of relationship just to get this over the line.
Shouldn't need to be 22 years.
It shouldn't need to be, right? And it shouldn't need to be, because you and I know very well there's 100 other more talented people than me who are smarter than me.
I don't know about that.
But they don't have those relationships. So, So where are they going to go, right?
And that's what you can be in some respects, is an ability to kind of connect to that community who have all of that talent, but they don't necessarily have the relationships, and you can allow for them to kind of get through doors that might otherwise be closed to them. And that's kind of what feels like it's happening. The thing that's really beautiful is that the reason we're speaking at all is because, you know, Sky announced that The Ditch, which is this fantastic league show about, you know, which looks at really the people behind the players and their whakapapa, their who they are and how they connect to their communities. And it's also just really funny. And like just like a great watch. But you started out making it for Sky and for Prime, and it's playing in prime time, like 7 p.m. on a Friday is huge on Prime. But now it's been sold out to Fox, to Kea, which is, you know, their streaming platform. Like, this thing is now really, really accessible to a broader Māori and Pacific diaspora. Tell me about that show in particular, how it came about, how you staffed it, and now this next stage, because that's an enormous achievement.
Yeah, the Ditch, again, for me was quite obvious. It came to me during the lockdown, and one thing we learnt from the lockdown was our inability to travel so freely to Australia and visit our relatives. Gave us this desperate urge or desire for family. I miss you, you know, I want to see you. But also from a cultural lens, when a Pasifika person goes to Australia, we never say, I'm going to Australia. We say, I'm going to see family, right? So we never ever see, you know, seeing these what do you call it? These borders, because to us they're invisible, right? So when I came up with the idea to do The Ditch, it was like, how can we acknowledge our relatives on that side and over here? How do we acknowledge Pasifika and Māori and our contribution to this this growing sport. The NRL is Southern Hemisphere's NFL. It's huge and it's growing, and our representation is getting bigger and bigger. I think close to 50% of the competition in Māori Pasifika.
But you don't see that in the wraparound coverage of the game to anything like that extent.
See it. And unless you see us the only time you hear us hold the mic is when we get Player of the Day, or you get comments, or the big hit, or you hear them mispronounce our surnames. They have no problem pronouncing Trebojevic, right? but they can't, pronounce our Pasifika and Māori names. But the way to change that is to normalize seeing more and more brown cultural content, and that's how you change people's attitude towards culture. And I just saw quite obvious that wasn't happening. It's just at board level and governance level in the game, we're very underrepresented. And I thought the best way to kind of raise these issues is by creating a show that really puts us up there. And thanks to the success of the show, we're the first ever sport show that Fox have ever bought off Sky. And it's made out of my garage. And I think people go, "Hey, JT, that's amazing." I'm like, bro, it's just normal for us. The fact that you think it's amazing is your prejudice towards us, right? Just give us the mic and I'll tell you where the rain's coming from and when it's coming.
The Fold is brought to you by O Media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa, with over 4,000 out-of-home advertising sites nationwide across both street furniture and retail centres. I'm super grateful to O Media for enabling us to make unmissable connections with Kiwis.
Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today.
Raising capital or taking your business to the world? Investment Fix has the lowdown on everything you need to make it happen. This season, we're exploring the US market, the opportunities it offers, what it takes to grow a business there, and the best way to approach investors. Join some of the superstars of the investment and business world as they share advice from their time in the US so you can make your mahi count in this massive market. The Investment Fix podcast, brought to you by Invest New Zealand. Tune in today.
So, part of what makes the show successful, I think, is Chris Key and Savannah Tafo-Levy. Like they're really, really spectacular hosts that you've found in those two. And tell us about that sort of talent acquisition process, because that's really it's something that people often talk about the extent, just how much talent there is in South Auckland. They act in a way, it's completely inaccessible. And and I think obviously what you're doing is proof that it's not inaccessible if you're there and if you, and I think that's probably a big opportunity that exists for Kava Bowl, is to continue to build that out and to be that connector, because the fact that you can walk into a Sky and hopefully more people will see what's happening with Sky and go, okay, well, there's something more there.
Chris, again, it's all about relationships. I've known Chris for many years and worked with him at Sky, and he left Crowd Goes Wild, and, I like his style. I like his personality, his demeanour. He doesn't mind, being the butt of jokes, but he's highly intelligent, and he's also a fan. He's genuinely a fan.
Yeah, you can feel that.
He's like a kid, and players love that, because they're like, this guy's actually looking at me like I'm the cure to cancer.
Well, he clearly has that deep knowledge of the code and all the intricacies and the things that he recalls. You can't do if you're just doing a bunch of different shows and just filling up,
And I think getting the right talent is key to anything, So if you were to get an experts talking to experts, and that format doesn't work, because you're like, well, it's a battle of, my dad's bigger than your dad. And with Savannah Tafau-Levy, she started on Pacific Brothers and Sisters. I remember 3 years ago getting an email from her saying who she was, and she'd been trying for years to try and get into media. And I said, hey, look. And she sent me this long email, and she's really brainy, and I don't like reading. And I couldn't, but I got as far as probably like a third down, and it just says, I'm from Otara. And I said, no, that's you're in, mate. And I said, what street? She said, the street. And I said, hey, I know the street. That was good enough for me. And she did really well, Pacific Brothers and Sisters, as a field reporter. And when this popped up, I tapped her on the shoulder and said, hey, look, I think you'll be perfect for this. And she said, JT, man, I'm not scared of a challenge, and I won't let you down and won't let our community down. And here she is, 10 eps in, and the whole world sees her. And I'm really, really proud of her and proud of her family.
Should be. You should be. So you are right now a production company, and I want to talk in a bit about the ambitions that you have for it, because they're not small, and I really I appreciate that. And what you've done in terms of the way that you've gone about it, in terms of basically making private sales between which go direct from Kava Bowl to Sky, that's unconventional. A lot of most of the bigger productions that are made here go through an intermediary, like predominantly New Zealand On Air, to the client, and yet and as you said, that creates barriers, which I don't. I think that anyone would look at the products you've made now and say that those barriers shouldn't exist for you. But when you look at the sort of evolving landscape of screen production and its distribution in New Zealand, do you think that, have you had any contact with the New Zealand On Air system, and what are your thoughts on ANZ PM, the kind of merged hybrid that's coming?
So back to you, to answer your question about how the relationship with Sky came about, and back to being unconventional. I said to Sky, look, if you want our stories, I am just a caretaker, right? So I don't own them, right? It's much deeper. It goes beyond. It takes us all the way back to the cosmos. It's really important that you understand that. No one owns this stuff, right? And I've got this huge responsibility. And if you want access to our IP, whatever that means, or to our stories, I need you to show me your mana. And right now, your mana is giving me money. Because in today's world, money is mana, right? And I don't want funding money. I want shareholder money. It needs to hurt, right?
Yeah.
And you need to go find. And if I find out you're getting this from some kind of funding, then you disrespected the process.
Right.
Give me money that hurts, that you take out of your shareholder accounts, right? That hits your bottom line. If you give it to me, then the whole process is blessed, because it starts with the purity that when you look at me, you understand what I'm doing, right? But if you're looking for funding from somewhere else, we'll always be on the back foot, right? Because you've disrespected the whole process, right? And they understood that. And right now, it's really hard for businesses to have money, but they understand it. And I'm just grateful that they gave me the respect and the trust. And they looked me in the eye and said, JT, we'll back you. And what happens as a result? It goes on Fox, it goes on KO, it goes on Digicel and all the islands, right?
Mm.
And how does that start? It starts because you believe in what I told you. This is the process. And this is what happens when you do it right, with integrity, and you understand our spirit. And that's what I believe in.
So does that mean that that you are not open to working with New Zealand On Air on another platform, or is it that you like the fact that the initial contact should come on a trust basis where it's real money being exchanged, rather than something that you basically outsourced the money side to this intermediary?
100%. Right? Of course, we need the support of New Zealand On Air, right? I'm a taxpayer, you're a taxpayer, right?
Sure.
And we want results, right? But the initial thing, if you're going to lobby or go into partnerships or corporates. They need to see this as a strategy. They need to see real importance, right? And how do they do that? It's just by going, look, we're going to invest in this. And now that we've done these projects and they've done really well, right? If you, please contact Sky and they'll give you the analytics on it. You know, it's kicking people in the teeth, right? But the next step is like, look, this is done well. How can we take it to the next level, right? So and that's where we're at now.
Oh, congratulations! It's an amazing achievement. Do you see, like, what is your relationship with other sort of players in the Pacific Media area, the likes of Coconut or Pacific Media Network? And do you see that within this, this huge new state sort of sponsored monolith that's coming down to us, do you see opportunity there, or do you, I've spoken to Don Mann on this podcast. He's a little bit concerned about how that thing will interact with some smaller entities.
Yeah, look, I really like the stuff that they're doing, but as you know, these doctors and these doctors, you know, you can go and get a degree and then get the qualification, but not all doctors are the same, right? Where I see our content is, if you're on the Coconut and all that stuff and all those platforms, it's great because there's a highway there for people to consume it. But the world I delve in is, how can I talk to middle-class New Zealanders who are desperately after this content and they're not on the Coconuts on the world, right? Because if I go down that route, I'm still niche. I'm just the fastest on the street. I want to be the fastest in the world.
Yeah.
Right? And right now my world is living in this diverse country that is a white country. And back to the analogy that I use all the time, Duncan, is I grew up in Otara and my favorite show was Country Calendar. I never missed the ep, man. My whole family, wearing our laula was watching this farmer put up a fence. And we're like, man, this is awesome, right? So if I can love this stuff because I understand these stories were about community, were about them continuing family legacy, right? Being better people and really celebrating the human spirit. So if that happens to me and happened to me in the 80s, well, why can't I create our stories and share it with little Nigel and Nelson?
So that's the idea, is you would love to take what you're doing now and you view opportunity in ANZ PM and this merged TVNZ RNZ?
Yeah, 100%. How can we share our stories with the world in a platform where, white people can consume it? Because I know I went to Auckland Grammar. All my best mates are white. I remember when my parents died, the first guys that turned up crying at my doorstep were, boys in BMWs, and their parents had their names on buildings. These are beautiful men, right? But statistically, they say, hey, just because you live on that side, prejudice goes both ways. And I'm just so blessed that I was at the age of 12 or 13, I got to experience the dominant culture and experience it for myself, that if we just hang out together, if we just hang out, man, the world could be a better place, and that's what I'm trying to do.
It's a true fact. And it's a beautiful thing that you're taking that connection that you established at that time and transmitting it into opportunity for your community, and honestly opportunity for the guys in BMWs to kind of solve for some of these things which they just haven't been able to for long periods of time.
And one thing I do lots in summer is I make sure I take their kids to Māngere pools, right? And I said, hey, look, man, I can't guarantee you that, I could give your kids the jaws, but one thing is I'll, at a young age, I'll program their lens not to fear us, right? And when they see us walking down the road, they don't need to cross the road, hey? And it starts by sending them to a sea of brown kids in a pool and hang out there, because once you do that, right, that's kind of stuff you can't teach in a classroom.
It's true. So the one of the other things that you do at Kava Bowl is, you've talked about, we've talked about Sky, but another client of yours is Deloitte, which, is one of the big kind of accountant consultancies. How did that come about, and what does that strand of work represent to you?
Yeah, so Deloitte, there's a couple of partners there. Shout out to Lisa Tai and Amy Dove. They're One's a returnman, one's Samoan, and working class backgrounds, and they're partners at Deloitte. And again, change only happens when it happens at the top.
It's true.
That's just how the world works. And they saw some opportunities where they could call on our marketing services to create content that'll help get the likes of the next crop out of university to come and work at Deloitte. And I was able to create some marketing material for them, some promotion that they use for acquisition tools. And it's been really, really successful.
It's just beautiful to think of Deloitte, this giant, one of the big four firms, kind of procuring Kava Bowl, and that will have flow-on effects for them. That's that's a really meaningful and beautiful thing that they've done.
Yeah, and let's be honest, they should have been doing this years ago.
Of course, but you can only start to can't do anything about what they should have done years ago, but they can do something about it now.
Yeah, and I'm glad the sisters are waving the flag for our community, but also for our country. And, I sit here, always saying the P word, Pacific and Māori, but I'm also a very proud Kiwi, and we all are. But it's unfortunate we have these, I don't know what these words are to describe our being, but we're all on this beautiful island just trying to make it a better place.
You're absolutely achieving that. Before we go, there's a couple of projects that you've done which I think are sort of, they feel outside of your core experience, but really sort of seem fascinating to me. The first is Mr. Cowboy, who I'd never heard until I started researching this podcast, but he's a Samoan country singer. Really Nashville sound, just extraordinary voice, singing in both in Samoan and in English, and this thing is getting millions of views. Like this dude is going places. What's up with that?
Yeah, so I was actually, if you don't mind me telling the story,
please tell the story.
I was in Germany at the time. My wife is German, and I was chilling out, and I missed 3 calls from my cousin. And he's usually the cousin I ring when I want something, right? So for him to ring me, I was like, either someone has passed away or it's really important. So I rang him back, and Nelson said, hey, cuz, there's this guy in Samoa who's really good at singing country music. And he sent me the clip, and I go, is that for real? He goes, yeah, that's his voice. And so I flew back from Germany, and I flew over and saw this kid. And I said, what's your story? And his name is Sam Achukun. And he calls himself Mr. Cowboy. And I said, why do they call you Mr. Cowboy? And he said when he was 7 years old, he entered a talent quest. And the MC asked him, what genre of music are you going to sing? But the MC didn't know the name for the genre is country music. So he just said in Samoan, and then obviously said, and next is Sam Chukun singing Mr. Cowboy. So everyone thought, his name was Mr. Cowboy.
It's a sick name.
But the guy was like, he didn't know the name for the genre. So Sam, he's a weird one. We always kind of joke about it that when God made him, he just got dropped off to the wrong island because his father was massive into country music. But Sam is a student of country music.
You can hear it.
Yeah. So
this is like wildly authentic.
Yeah. And we'd hear songs on the radio and go, the original was sung by such and such. And it was like, who's that? So I just think he's an odd dude. But it's the oddity. It's the juxtaposition of it all that, again, makes you question your prejudice, which is a word that I hate because it's or unconscious bias, which is an excuse for racism.
But and it feels like the very fact of him sort of challenges so many preconceptions and also speaks to that, it's almost like the inverse of, like the country calendar thing or whatever, him taking this like really like super, this kind of very produced Nashville sound, it somehow travelling its way to the islands, and then it's coming back here and ultimately going around the world on YouTube.
So we went to, we got invited to Tamworth, which is the biggest country music festival in the Southern Hemisphere. There's 300,000 people over 2 weeks or whatever. And they were really polite, and they would say, hey, John, you don't know us, we don't know you, and we'll put you on these stink slots, like, hey man, we'll take whatever, And after the first slot, everything else was sold out. I had a real moment where we played in front of 11,000 people, and afterwards, because we didn't know, you have to take photos afterwards, right? And we had this, it was like over 200 meters of people lining up, and they're all white farmers wearing shorts, real these white people and these white outback farmers, right? They take it to whole I've never seen so many Toyota Hiluxes in my life. And they came up, and one guy said, mate, we drove 5 hours to see you sing, right? Oof. So I'm standing there, I hear it because I'm standing on the side. So Sam goes quiet, and I kind of get all teared up, and I said, this is what happens. This is what happens when we're given opportunities to really connect, and music is really powerful. And at the end, we got approached by Sony Music. Their chairman flew me and Sam over twice to try and sign us, and we said, and this is why I think Sam Chukun or Mr. Cowboy is my hero, because we're sitting in this boardroom, and they say, mate, if you take this up, you'll never have to worry about bills again, right? So I look at Sam, and we're sitting in there. And
so is this in Australia?
So this is a chairman for all of Asia. Big,
big deal.
Massive deal. So we had a little break, and then I said to Sam, look, if we do this, right, you could build your house, because the struggle is real. I said, you could build your family a house, we'll be set up, you'll be set up. But I said, there's also the other option, right? I don't know many Pacific Islanders have been flown, or anyone, to sit with the chairman of Sony and look him eye to eye and have him grovel over you. Hey, we walked in and all the TV screens had his picture and name, and I was like, bro, that's a hustle.
They've done this before, right?
The security, what put me off was we walked in and the security guy knew our names. You're like, bro, we're part of your script, So, but I get it. That's what happens.
Well, it's a level of respect and desire.
Desire.
They see you, but it doesn't mean that you have to go along with their plan.
But I'm like, hey man, James Cook also did that to us.
True.
Yeah, I think we read this book, buddy. Yeah. So I said to Sam, look, we have an opportunity to say to them, we'll only sign this deal if you create Sony Pacific. So that way you take all of us. Right? Because if I come and we just look after ourselves, then we've missed the point. But we had to manner up for our community, for our people, for our village, for our ancestors. And then they said, look, we'll go back to New York, see if we can start Sony Pacific. Because if you start Sony Pacific, it's eye to eye. You're not raping and pillaging us for our stories, right? We are partners, And then they went away and they came back and they said, look, New York said, we can't start because Sony, they've never done that before. I said, hey, look, we need the money. But we came with nothing and it doesn't matter. We'll find a way. So I looked at Sam, and right now, Sam's father passed away last year, and they don't have a house and they really want to build one. So we're going on the road again in October to Tamworth to try and fundraise some money to build him a house. But it was Sam because Sam could have easily said to me, John, nah, man, I got to look after number one. But when you're Pacific Islander, number one is...
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And you have to understand that when you're walking, when you're talking, when you go to work, but also when you're making media. It's not about you. It's about everybody else.
That's beautiful. So in terms of where you're headed, there's this phrase that you used in Steve Kilgowan's excellent profile of you on Stuff, which I encourage anyone listening who's curious to know more to look up, where you talked about the paramount of the South Pacific, which tell me what that phrase means and where you'd really like to see this going into the future. Yeah,
there's a reason, I'm quite philosophical about these things, Duncan. And as you know, Māngere was the fruit basket for Māori for thousands of years because of its fertile land. My garage is actually on the foot base of Māngere Mountain, right? My garage is on this fertile land. And I truly believe that even in this day, Māori are looking after us through these stories. There's something powerful about my team and myself understanding that we're able to make so much noise and with very little runway, in such a short space of time. And I say to them, man, someone is looking after us. There's no accident that we're on this fertile land. And we acknowledge Māori and our relationship with them. And back to the whole Paramount thing, I believe Kava Bowl Media will be a home for our Pasifika content makers because they have no home to go to. The point of entry into getting into media or getting into the industry doesn't exist for us, right? We're scared. Where do we go? And I said, look, don't be scared, man. There's a place down the road that you could actually walk to, right? And I'll show you the vision and I'll hug you and I'll love you and I'll show you how to make great content, right? In an environment that we're really comfortable with. And we're the only guys that when we make stuff and we're editing and filming, we have to stop because my kids run in or my neighbour's mowing the lawns, It's real, and we need that as human beings to experience that.
Oh, it's honestly such an impressive thing, and really, really excited to see where it goes. And thank you so much for coming up here today on The Fold.
No, thank you for having me, and I wish you all the best and also proud of what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Oh, man, thank you.
The Fold was brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network, together with Daylight. It was hosted by Duncan Greive, produced by T.I. Butler, with production management by Rachel LaRue and series production by Jane Yee.
That was The Fold, brought to you by our partners at O Media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa. Huge thanks to O Media for sponsoring this episode of The Fold and enabling us to make unmissable connections with Kiwis.
K-pop to me means more than just listening to music. It's learning to be myself.
The Spin-Off's new documentary, K-Pollies, follows 3 Pacific youth obsessed with K-pop. In a one-off documentary, see what they've found in Korean pop culture and how they bridge it with their own.
When you start dressing, looking different, everyone side-eyes you. But in K-pop, they're just like, no, celebrate yourself.
Watch K-Pollies today at thespinoff.co.nz/videos. Made with the support of New Zealand On Air. The Spin-Off Podcast Network.